Hello everybody, so today continuing some work on my 2005 BMW 545i. This is the N62 engine and ZF transmission that's attached to it. And if you've seen any of the videos before, you know that I've basically had to remove the engine and transmission from the car, fixing various things, and it was just easier to get at everything and do everything all over a period of a couple of weeks where it's easy for me to see. So there's a lot of great videos out there already about how to do all these things individually, but as long as I had the engine out and the transmission out, it kind of gives a good opportunity for a close-in view of some of these parts that are really difficult to see when everybody's doing it inside the car. So today, looking at the alternator bracket gasket that would develop an oil leak on these cars, and you can see I've got everything out of the car. And I already did this job once when I first got it. It's been about 30,000 miles, and as long as I've got everything out, I'm going to go ahead and do it again. And the gasket itself is really inexpensive. It's only $7, $8, $9 depending on where you get it from. Easily findable online. So it's a little bit of a cold day in Wisconsin. If you see a little bit of smoke going in front of the camera, it's because, you know, cold air and warm breath. So here is actually our power steering pump. You have to take that off in order to get to this gasket. So when you're sitting in the car, basically you have to take off all your coolant lines. It's easier to remove the air cleaner, get a lot of the wiring out of the way, take the belt off, and to actually remove the power steering pump, there's a couple of hoses that go on right down here. I believe that was a 19 and a 16 or an 18 and a 16 millimeter nut that went on those. They are different sizes. We have a bolt right there. We have a nut right there with a stud coming out from the engine block. So those need to come off. We have another bolt right there that's actually going to be taken out to get the bracket off. Those should be 13 millimeters. And the tricky part on this car is, if you take a look, rotating around from the front of the power steering pump, right straight through to the back, right there. That cap screw has to come out as well. And that is a 6 millimeter Allen key that goes in there in order to get that out. So nice and easy for me while I got the car out, but you can see where the engine mount is. You're going to have the frame running underneath it. You're going to have to reach up underneath and kind of around the back. And there is also usually a hose attached here. When I did it the first time, it was easy enough for me to just put a screwdriver on the clamp and loosen the clamp and take that hose off of there. So that gives you a little bit more access back there. So a little bit better view of the access that needs to be taken, or that's available for these, as well as the size. Now after I get that out, I also have to take off the engine mount. This is on the driver's side of the car, and it is 4 screws that go on there. These are external Torx. You got one right there, you got one down low, you got one around the back here, you got one down there. 4 of those, and that is an external 12 screw head. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off and get the access back to that gasket and replace it, and I'll be back with more videos as I fix more things and show you guys some of the clearances and everything on this engine. Okay, another segment on my 2005 BMW 545i N62 engine and ZF transmission. Got them outside the car, repairing a number of different things. And this is the video I'm shooting right after showing removing the power steering pump to get to the alternator bracket gasket, which failed occasionally on these machines. I actually did this job inside the car, replaced the gasket a while ago, but as long as I got everything out and the part is nice and cheap, I'm going to do it again, just make sure everything's torqued down correctly and that I'm starting fresh with my rebuild. So power steering pump came off, 3 bolts up front. There was an M6 cap screw hanging onto it back here. The engine mount is now off. There's 4 bolts holding that on. Those 4 bolts were external Torx. And those were an external torque size 12. There's a long one and a short one. There are 2 long ones, 2 short ones, so make sure you get them back in the right spot. Now, there are a couple more bolts holding this bracket on there. You got one right there, which is a 16 millimeter. You got one down low, which is a 13 millimeter. So, once again, I'm not really trying to recreate anybody's videos out there. As long as I have my engine out and it gives you guys a good visual on some of the stuff that's hard to see when you're in the car, I'm just hoping it's helpful for a few people out there. So, I'll get this bracket gasket out and swap it with a new one. Okay, so moving on, we got our alternator bracket down there. 16 and 13 millimeter bolts were removed. In the front, you had those 3 that were down there. You actually also have your belt tensioner, which fits right in that slot where that socket is, the actual back pressure point. And the bolt that goes in there is a 16 millimeter socket to get that out. That comes out. There was also a torque screw right in here, that little recessed area. That was a T45. And then the last thing holding the bracket on is actually this 13 millimeter, this bolt with the 13 millimeter socket on it right now. So you can see it's moving around pretty easily. We'll go ahead and take that out. Okay, and there we have our alternator bracket. Not the smoothest way for it to come out, but it gives you guys a good laugh, hopefully, and a good chance to see where all those bolts are, again, with everything outside the car. So that's it. Some of them look a little different depending on the options of your car. If you have an oil cooler or not. This happens to be the one that I got. So we'll get that out of there and get the new one in.